got handouts for the audience, copies of the slides that we'll be going over. The timeline for initiating the tax levies begins with the certification of our property assessments by KBE. They certified and we received our tax assessments for 2014-15 on August 5th. We have 45 days from receipt of that to submit our rates back to KBE. Anytime that you levy a rate that's greater than the compensating rate, that is equal to or less than the 4% increase rate, we have to have publish advertisements in the paper 2 consecutive weeks and hold a public hearing not less than 7 days, no more than 10 days after the second advertisement. Those ads were placed in the paper August 19th, August 26th, and the hearing is this evening, September 2nd. We have until September 19th to submit the rates to KDE, then September 30th to submit a working budget. The notice that was in the local paper outlines that the hearing would be held here this evening, September 2nd, with proposed rates of 47.6 cents for real and personal property. The rate that was levied in 2014 was 47.2 cents on both real and personal property and produced $17,713,816.77. Proposed rates is expected to produce $18,909,757.66, and of that, $1,598,814.75 is for new and personal property. Compensating rate for 2015 would be 45.7 cents on both real and personal property, and would be expected to produce $18,154,956.40. Next paragraph is a summary where those expected revenues would be allocated, and that the advertisement is required by the General Assembly. Next page, taken and summarized the information that was actually in for the tax rate for 2014, which is your top information block that's blocked in there. We had expected revenue produced from last year's rate, the increase of $1,243,000. The actual increase was $1,909,495, meaning that when you put the ad in the paper, you're using gross numbers. You're taking your assessment times your rate, doesn't take into consideration discounts, exonerations, and refunds. So applying the percentage of actual increase last year to this year, we would expect to receive approximately $970,000 rather than $1,195,000 in that bottom square. Just showing that there are differences between what's actually in the advertisement and what we would actually expect to receive and would actually budget for. The next slide is the summary of revenue produced by class of property, using both the compensating rate and the 4% increase rate. The compensating rate would produce $18,154,956. 4% rate was $18,909,000. We allow for discounts, refunds, exonerations, and we have to budget the 3 nickels to the building fund. 3 nickels would total $6,530,477. Regardless of what rate the board would choose to levy, that goes to the building fund. Then based on the motor vehicle assessments, It's not included actually in the discussion tonight for the hearing, but I included it for your information. We would expect to receive about $2,087,000 in motor vehicle tax. Again, that's gross. That does not include any discounts or fees paid to the county clerk. Next schedule just gives you a comparison between actual revenues that we collected for 2014 in the real and tangible property general fund, in the motor vehicle, and down at the bottom I have the building fund. 2014 we collected $11,469,000 in real and tangible property, $2,054,000 motor vehicle tax, and down at the bottom we had $6,244,263 that was dedicated to the building fund. Then I have in the middle the amounts that are actually was in the tentative budget that the board approved in May for each of those categories. Then to the far right, what the expected revenue would be, net revenue would be for 2015 if the board approves the recommended 4% increase rate this evening. For real and tangible property, we would budget $12,040,000, motor vehicle $2,047,000, and we would have $6,530,477 in the building fund. Included in an excerpt from the tentative budget. Just wanted to point out some areas that we have increasing cost. This is not unique. We have these year over year. If you look at item E, it includes the state mandated pay raise. We don't have exact numbers, but the numbers that we use back with the tentative budget was about $431,000 for that 1% pay raise. Step increase, that would be folks that move up in the salary schedules as they have seniority or years of experience. Some folks move up. We budgeted about a 0.5% increase to cover those step increases, an additional $215,000. Item H, KTRS, your certified staff, your teachers had to contribute an additional 0.75% towards retirement, and the board was required to match that. And it's an additional approximately $236,000 from the board. We increased the allocations to SPDM councils back up to the 3.5% of base C. In previous years, we had that down to $100. That was an additional $283,000 in budgeted cost.
I'm sorry, what item was that?
Item I.
Thank you.
Item J, in the tentative budget, we had 5.2 FTE additional staff. That was due to student growth. Looks like it might be a little bit greater than that. We're running our enrollment numbers later this week and recalculate those allocations based on the actual enrollments. We budgeted additional $271,000 for the additional staff. Item K, we had $95,000 for student benchmark assessments for 14-15. And item N, an additional $50,000 for utility costs for Levens Mill Phase 2 coming online. In prior years, that was paid out of construction money, with it being board taking that building over Phase 2, we're looking at an additional $50,000. So those items total about $1.5 million, almost $1.6 million. We're not here to talk about FY16, but I want to point out FY16, the state has mandated a 2% increase. We would need to budget an additional at least another 0.5% for step increases, and there will be an additional 0.75% increase in KTRS for both the board and employees for FY16.
A 2% increase for all.
2%, yes. Mandated 2%. SEEK this year increased a little over 2% to base SEEK. Next year, I think it's about 1.7% increase.
Certified and 2%.
2%.
budget, we had 13,840.
Correct.
And based on what we're doing tonight, with the, we would be somewhere at 14,088. But everything that's on the next page, the general fund expenditures, is already in the tentative budget.
That's correct.
That's what I want to make sure. I thought so, but, because I remember specifically the 95 for the assessments, yeah. Okay, all right. I thought that's what it was, I was just making sure.
The rate that we used to project the revenues is right on what this proposed rate is. The assessments were different, accounted for this difference. Again, what's been proposed is a rate of 47.6 cents for real estate and 47.6 cents for tangible personal property.
Okay, can I ask one more question?
Sure.
You
Okay,
could
so,
ask even more than that.
so you've looked at, you mentioned fiscal 16, that we're gonna have to have a 2.2% increase or mandated. If I remember correctly, I saw at some point, and we had talked about, you had already looked at projections for assessments for fiscal year 16. Have you, I'm not holding you to anything, I'm just asking if you looked at it all.
We put projections together last year, and they were conservative for this year. In other words, the rates came in, growth was a little bit higher,
Yeah.
and I would expect next year to be a little bit higher also.
Okay.
The thing that hurts us with assessments, if you lose money on the seats, you get an increased revenue from your local taxes, but a good portion of that's taken back out of seek. You have one line to 30 cents per hundred taken right off the bat.
Okay, and so let me ask this, and I need to talk this through for just a second. So when that happens, and we say that we're gonna give back to the schools the 3.5%. In 16, if we done that same thing and SEEK went down, in essence, we're absorbing some of that cost because SEEK has gone down, but we're still gonna give that back to the schools. Is that right?
Your seek, your
Right.
base seek is gonna actually increase next year. The amount that you get per student will actually increase. So
Okay.
if you give 3.5%, the amount you give schools will actually increase next year over this year also. That's not built into this computation. What I'm referring to is when you go through your different strands in SEEK, you'll come down to a dollar amount. And from that total dollar amount, the state takes back 30 cents per hundred times your assessments. And as your assessments go up, you get more local revenue, but then they reduce your SEEK by that growth.
What they call equalization.
Yes.
Those who have a,
For the foreseeable future.
It doesn't hurt us as much as it used to. When our rate was lower, we're at 47.6 cents proposed. 15 cents of that goes to the building fund. When we were lower than 35 cents or 45 cents, we were losing money out of the general fund when assessments went up.
We still have those 3 nickels that have.
Yeah, you, 3 nickels come off the top, then the rest goes to the general fund.
that just stays there, that's not to be touched, that's gotta go.
That's restricted money, goes to your building fund, and it's outlined